Hi, this is Deanna Kosaraju, founder of Global Tech Women. I want to introduce you to the panel Brilliance of Women's Successes, a great panel that's going to talk about women, their successes, and how we can all learn from their growth. A few housekeeping items. If you're a visitor on the session, you need to log in to participate in the chat window that's over on the right-hand side. Or you can follow our Twitter feed at hashtag Voices2014, and I will be monitoring that chat session or that Twitter feed, and asking the panel those questions for you. There's a question box immediately below us. You can put your questions in there, so I can feed those over to the panel. And then this link is going to be available for recording. So 30 minutes after the session closes, we will have this link available to you. You can forward it to friends and colleagues if they want to watch the recording for up to 30 days after the session concludes. And lastly, I'm going to be putting up a couple of PowerPoint slides. So you need to know that you can drag and drop those slides anywhere on the screen you'd like. You control the slides, so they're going to tell you what slide number they're on. That way you can follow along with them. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the panel, and they're going to get started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. I'm Bonita Banducci, and I teach gender and engineering here at Santa Clara University, where we are today. And we had a fabulous panel yesterday of many of the men who, well, a number of men who had been in the class and talking about how they had really forwarded their careers by forwarding the careers of women. Today we have a number of great and brilliant women with us who have either participated in the course here at Santa Clara or in a workshop that I've developed out of that called Calling Out the Brilliance of Women. And that indeed is the theme of today's conversation, the discovery of the brilliance, of your own brilliance beyond what you ever knew. It was actually came out of my attending a panel at Stanford where the topic was how to get more women on boards. And one woman who had been and has been on 4 boards was asked from the audience, what is it that you bring to the board as a woman that wouldn't be there otherwise? And her response was common sense. There was a hush in the audience. And of course the implication is, number one, that she only brings common sense, and then number 2, that the men don't bring common sense. In any case, I took her aside afterwards at the reception and asked her if she would confirm something for me. And I told her my Carol Bartz story, which is about Carol Bartz telling me in my early research, when she was actually the second in command at Sun Microsystems. Carol had said to me that what she brought to the board was the ability to see all the different ramifications of a given issue and prevent fires, whereas the other executives considered her not to be a team player because she was this fire preventer rather than firefighter. I told, again, I expanded on this story with the woman at the reception and said that Carol really saw herself as a systems thinker and a fire preventer. And indeed, that's what she agreed her common sense was. And of course, when I suggested that she might use that in the future, it was a no-brainer for her. Of course, she would talk about that. And that was what triggered my interest in framing the work that I've been doing on gender competence and distinguishing the differences of men and women in terms of their competencies in the workplace. It had me be interested in talking to women about what they've been actually assuming is just common sense and not articulating. Going back to the Carol Bartz story, the fact that she was seen to be not a team player, when indeed what she was doing was not following the call of the quarterback, getting into other people's turfs because she was interfacing all the different aspects of the company and stalling the action because it was a more complex solution. In any case, I've discovered that that's the kind of thing that women need to be able to articulate so that they're understood by others. And if you watch the video from yesterday about engaging men, you will see how they had complete mind shifts with regards to the women they were working with out of doing this work. For the women, it's being able to recognize you're not thinking just common sense. This is brilliant, and you need to articulate it. So just to give you a little bit more groundwork, and Deanna, are you going to put up the slides, my PowerPoint block? We generally think in terms, instead of speaking as masculine and feminine, which is not something that the men are going to get into, we talk in more functional terms, that that there are the different lenses can be articulated as individualistic and relational, which goes along with cross-cultural understanding. Do you want to, actually you all are going to be forwarding your own slides, so if you go to slide 2, that'll give you a breakdown very generally of what I'm talking about in terms of individualistic and relational in terms of their lenses. Individualistic emphasizes status and independence, freedom, whereas the relational emphasizes connection and how are we alike, and how can even if we aren't alike, how can we work together? And information, individualistic, of course, is tending to hoard information and only give what's needed and very focused, whereas relational people will more likely share information even though they may not be a specific purpose, but they sense that there will be a value in sharing what they see is of value. And doing one thing at a time, contrasting with doing many things at once, which is a different relationship to time. And then what we'll probably be hearing a lot today from these women is the difference between step thinking or linear compartmentalized thinking, prioritized thinking, and web thinking, which is another way of I'm talking about the systems thinking or the fire prevention kind of thinking. What we can also talk about as connecting the dots kind of thinking. So that gives you a little background on what the differences are. And I've asked the great women here today to talk about how they've distinguished their brilliance, their relational competencies, and sometimes in the face of using these distinctions with a woman that might be more individualistic. I mean, because, let's see, I'll go on to slide 4. If you move to slide 4, it gives you a better picture of the way we articulate that the differences run along a spectrum, that we aren't saying that all women are one way and all men are another way. So that's, I think, a more accurate depiction. And there's some people that are ambidextrous, or what we call bridge brains. So we're not saying that just because there's an exception that this doesn't work. We use the exceptions, we include the exceptions, and work with them that way. Now, I'll just go back to my story about discovering that I thought probably it would be interesting to talk with women about what they think is common sense. I did a small group, there were probably about 10 of us, of women locally, and I did a workshop introducing this idea that these relational competencies are probably what we consider to be common sense. And they really enjoyed the discovery and the dialogue and the sharing with each other what they were discovering. After that workshop, Sue Young, who's right here, came up to me and said, Bonita, this is really important. You should be doing this as a workshop. So it's really a great pleasure to have Sue here and start you off with what you've discovered out of bringing out your own brilliance. Susan.
Thank you, Bonita.
And you can please introduce yourself, as you would like.
Okay. I'm Sue Young. I work at Oracle. Previously was Sun Microsystems. I've been there for 27 years. I work as a program manager in the microprocessor division currently in the last 3 years. When I was hired 4 years ago, one of the things that was interesting was that I was hired not necessarily for my expertise in releases or my technical knowledge previously in software and also in platform hardware, but in the way that I network and the people that I've worked with and who I have worked with successfully. So one of the major things I did when I started with the group was that we looked at, as being a newly acquired company with Oracle, our task was, the very first week was, we have to ship the product 3 months earlier. We had never done this before on shipping a brand new platform, not just releasing our CPU that was new, but shipping new boards and new systems. So I took a look at it from a higher perspective. In all the schedules said it couldn't be done, and we said, I looked at it and I said, well, there are slightly different. It's not the same kind of changes that we're implementing in this release. I took a look at it and I proposed a different method of testing that was not the way people were used to. So my manager and I went back to the East Coast. We met with all the groups and we proposed a different method. It was clearly not what they wanted to hear, but it was going to get us all to the same end goal, which was we're going to have to announce at Oracle Open World, which there was no other option. It was the only way we could do it. So in working with all the people that I had connections with, of course we did our homework and did the analysis, and it looked very feasible. We were able to do it.
That's really fabulous. And fabulous. Now, a couple of things I want to point out here is, and because Sue had told me this story before, and I asked, who was it that hired you? It was a woman.
Yes.
Who recognized that you have this ability to bring relationships, make relationships, and bring people together, right? That's not an accident.
That's right. And I'm probably the only person in the whole 750-person organization that does not have a degree in circuit design.
Wow.
So they really wanted somebody who had the relationships, who had the experience with knowing how to release something in a different way, doing something differently.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much. So was this a discovery for you? I mean, suddenly you saw this out of doing this, calling out the brilliance of women, you could realize that this was something so unique?
Absolutely. It also gave me a lot of confidence because I would go into meetings. I obviously was in a different kind of environment, working with a whole new group that was very focused on, power consumption of CPUs and transistors and gate counts and so forth, which I had never had any experience with. But what they wanted was my experience with people. And that was something that they didn't really have. They wanted to build on that because they had, of course, worked with all these people, but didn't have the same, my sense was that they didn't have the same influence with these groups. And that's what I brought to it.
That's great. Fabulous. Well, then I want to underline here that this confidence factor is what I've found over and over again. Not that women lack confidence, but once you get a sense of you have something different to bring to the table and being able to articulate, being able to name it, there is a sense of confidence that is beyond what you've ever had before. And I think some of it is because, at least according to my experience and understanding, is that often relational people are very other-directed. And it's hard to stand up against, other opinions and be different and not have any kind of agreement. That really like to have people be able to say, hey, that's a great idea, and even build on the idea. And often we live in an environment of opposition, and I hope someone will be talking about that too, what we do in the workshop.
And I ask different questions. That's something that I'm not focused on fixing the technical problem, but looking at the bigger picture of, well, the problem isn't the technical pieces of it, it's the relationships that are there, and the baggage that sometimes people have with each other, or the assumptions about other groups, that they're only going to behave a certain way.
That's great. That's great. Really great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Shelly, how about you? You've been in this since the beginning with me. Yikes. So I'm Shelly Gordon, and I don't work for a large corporation. I have my own public relations company, and I've been doing PR for a couple of decades. In the technology area. In technology and healthcare. Yeah. And also, you know, medical technology, not just healthcare providers. And I am really fascinated by this whole individualistic versus relational sort of paradigms or models. They make great reference points for me, and I've been able to see through that lens, aha, you know, it's a way for me to, you know, in situations where it may be difficult, like I'm talking to the CEO of a company and I'm pitching my business, you know, I'm trying to get him or her to hire me. And sometimes I can be thrown off balance, and this is a way for me to steady myself when I realize, aha, I'm dealing with somebody who's more individualistic. And there are some exceptions, you know, I've met women who are individualistic and men who are more relational, and so instead of saying, oh, men are like this, women are like this, even though it's predominantly, you know, the way Bonita described, there are exceptions. And the other day, I have a couple of examples. So the other day, I had the opportunity to interview the CEO of a company, and this guy is kind of a under the radar, but if people knew who he was, they would say, oh my God, it's that guy. And he invented a couple of medical technologies, some of which, you know, one is the pulse oximeter. Everybody's probably familiar with the clip on your finger, and then, you know, you're connected to a monitor, and they can tell when you're under anesthesia if you're still breathing, you know, if there's enough oxygen circulating. So anyway, I got to interview him, and I asked him, you know, kind of like lessons learned as an entrepreneur, and he's 77 and he's still inventing. And what I realized from what he said is, as an individualistic personality, he's able to narrow his focus, and to the exclusion of everything else, to invent. And I saw something about that as a relational person, although I, like Bonita said, I sort of embody both. I saw that women, as women, we care about everything. And I think men are able to focus in to the exclusion of everything else, and they don't feel bad about it. And whereas I feel like, you know, sometimes it's difficult for me to say, I'm just going to focus on my business. Well, what about climate change? I got to do something there. It's, so that is something that really, you know, kind of resonated for me. And then, so I had, you know, gotten a couple of new clients lately, and I noticed the difference in the conversations. So in this case, it was a woman I was talking to, two women that were talking to me about my business. And what I noticed was that they start in the middle of a conversation because the relationship wasn't as important. So it wasn't like, how are you? Tell me about yourself. You know, give me some of your background. It was, and in PR, this may be obvious to you, who are your contacts? You know, who are your media contacts in our industry? And so the first person I had the conversation with said, she started off the conversation by saying, well, I went to your website and I see some problems. That was how she started the conversation. And if I didn't narrow my focus and match her, I could have been thrown off balance. And I said, well, actually, I have a range of industries that I've worked with. And I said, you know, let me go through, you know, sort of my outline, and I'll probably answer your questions that you have about that. And then at one point she said, which is also something not uncommon among, you know, prospective clients, she said, we'd like to be on, you know, a morning talk show here called Good Morning America. And, you know, if you know anything about PR, we say, okay, I need to move on, but we say in advertising you pay, in PR you pray. So you do everything you can possibly do to get the result. Anyway, I said to her, I don't have that contact. So if that's, you know, if you can find somebody who has that competency, you know, by all means. And it was like I matched her sensibility, and out of that we started a relationship. So by my being straight with her, she actually said, well, anyone who says they do and they can get me on Good Morning America may not be even telling me the truth. So, you know, I have another example, but I know my time is coming to an end. But that's something that I learned, you know, with my relationship with Bonita and her work, and that I, you know, can use it as a reference point and see, okay, she's not interested in sort of the, you know, the bigger picture, you know, getting to know me. She wants to, like, zero in, you know, narrow her focus. And out of that, you know, we started a relationship, and now they've become a client. So.
You become a client.
Yeah, they become a client.
Yeah, they become a client. Right, that's fabulous. And I just want to throw up another slide. I mean, you have to move yours. And I'll just remind you that if you move the whole slide set over to the up and to the right, then you'll be able to see the chat going on as well. But to go to slide number 3, it gives you a picture of what Shelly was talking about in terms of difference in focus and the larger perspective. And this can go for how men and women see the world, how they speak, how they think. If you've ever heard a man say, would you please get to the point? Or could you please get to the point? That can be the difference in terms of the way often we speak. You know, that's the sharing of information, that we think there's so many details that are important. In any case, what Shelly was talking about, I think, is well depicted here, and it's useful to be able to have it as a background. Thanks, Shelly. Linda, how about you? How have you used this?
Thanks, Bonita. My name is Linda Lubin Thompson, and I have spent 25 years in the technology world here in Silicon Valley.
This is the executive perspective now we're getting. Go ahead.
And I've been in human resources and leadership development for most of that time, and was a director and a vice president of human resources at a number of companies here in the Valley. And so not a technical person either, but have worked my entire career with highly technical people, very individualistic in Bonita's terminology. And the first thing I want you to talk about is leads to the second thing, which is that I have throughout my career, and now I've got my own consulting practice where I'm focusing on building leadership competencies, particularly among women. But I'm an executive coach and consultant focusing on high potential leadership development. And earlier in my career, I was at one of these technology companies. I was responsible for, among other things, the global employee survey that was done every 2 years. The first thing that I reflect on is Bonita's talk about systems thinking, and how that affected me in how I interpreted the results of these surveys, because there were thousands of people who took the survey, and instead of looking at it through a linear way with logic or obvious logic, and looking at the numbers, I would glance over all the results, kind of flip through them, spend some time with the comments, because there was an option to write comments, and I would, from that, glean the main trends in the survey results, which then people who were more strictly analytical would come to, but in a much more linear, logical, and frankly slower way. So what I deemed as just intuitive,
thank you. Eliminate just from your vocabulary.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Now I see as relational systems thinking with intuitive links and connecting the dots. And that's how I interpreted the data. The story that I want to tell took place in the 1990s at a high-tech company that I was at, where I was for the first time responsible for this survey that went out to employees all over the world. And I decided that in addition to looking at how long people had been at the company and what their level of was in the company and where they were geographically located and what business unit they were in, I also wanted to look at the differences between how men felt about the company and how women felt about the company. So I did a gender demographic break, and it was stunning to see the results because women were overall much less satisfied with the company as a whole and their experience in the company than men were. So the CEO of the company, fabulous man, said to me, I don't like this. I want you to find out what is causing the difference. And so I went to Bonita, and she was a consultant. She was working on gender issues, and together we did a project that had incredible ramifications within the company. We did focus groups, we did individual interviews, we again analyzed the data in our way, and what I remember from that data was that women overall wanted more communication, two-way communication, but wanted more communication about all aspects of the business than they were getting, which again goes back to the systems thinking and the linking and the connecting. So in the next 2 years, not only were a few more women promoted to higher levels of leadership.
Well, why don't you toot your horn a little bit? There are 2 promoted to vice president and 3 to director, and in those days, that was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
So there were those promotions, and there were also, from the CEO down, there was much more communication that went out about business much more frequently. And so everyone benefited. It didn't just go to the women, the communication. But what happened 2 years later, which was stunning to me, because I haven't seen that before or since in this kind of survey work, is that 2 years later, the demographics indicated that the women's satisfaction equaled the men's satisfaction in the company. It was amazing, and I credit Bonita and the work that we did for giving us the information that we needed in order to affect that culture. And I credit John Adler, the brilliant and wonderful CEO of that company, for letting us do it, for welcoming the information that we gave him, and for making changes that made a huge difference.
Yeah, there were other changes too. Like, for instance, at the time, only bonuses were given out to people that had direct impact on revenue generated. And, there were concerns about people that were in support roles. They wanted to share in the bonus. And that was one thing that was changed. So there were a number of other things. There's so many great stories from that one project. We should have an anniversary celebration, Linda, sometime. What was it that I wanted to say about that?
Well, if I might, I just wanted to say that this work has helped me distinguish for other women in my consulting practice. Right. So it's like paying it forward, helping other women to understand what they are experiencing and how they might come up against and deal with some of the barriers that they've run up against in a way that's not condemning of either them or the men that they're working with.
Yeah.
It's been very powerful.
That's great. That's fabulous. What I was going to say was that the fact that we did this project, and I say we, all the women were really listened to. And, and we had a narrowly focused project of about 3 or 4 focus groups and about 5 women individually, but I'll take credit for saying, well, okay, that's the contract, but I'm not going to turn down any woman who wants to talk. So I went in and interviewed anyone who wanted to talk. And what was also great about the company is they actually doubled the contract. They paid me a double because I had done so much. And, you know, it was just all around, it was really a positive experience and very exceptional. And I will say that we also were told by the survey fellow that to turn around an employee opinions survey like that was remarkable because it actually leveled off from a downward spiral. So I just wanted to add that too. It's really great. Thanks so much, Linda. Now, Amani is going to bring a different perspective in, the more global perspective. And so I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Amani.
Thank you for having me. My name is Amani AlBakry. I'm from Saudi Arabia, and I'm here. I'm pursuing my doctorate degree in organizational leadership studies. And right now I'm in the phase in writing my dissertation. I'm going to be doing my proposal defense this May. So it's coming soon, so I'm so excited. And yeah, I'm full of hope for that research actually to be effective in the country when I go back. First of all, I'd like to say Happy International Women's Day.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, because I'm so proud to be a woman. And every day when I wake up, I feel like, especially but after all of this awareness about my women's quality and women's brilliance. So my research is about Saudi women's employment. It's a qualitative study. And after getting to know all of this knowledge through Bonita, through her classes and her workshop, that shifted my my thinking towards something more beautiful about myself and about women. Especially this kind of awareness is really important, especially because in Saudi Arabia right now, in recent years, we have a lot of women getting to the workforce after the Ministry of Labor integrated this program to hire more women in factories and stores and all of the workforce. And with the scholarship as well, I'm part of one of the students has been sent to here through the program. King Abdullah actually started in 2005, and they just extended the program till 2020. And right now we're about 130,000 students all over the globe. So just by saying that, we can get the sense that a lot of women gonna be in the workplaces in recent years. Right now we have a lot, but still, like more are coming. So I was thinking, I was talking with Bonita last time, and I was like, do you know what? We need to get the workplaces ready for this women, because we have actually everything has been changing a lot and in a fast pace in the country, but it's a conservative culture. And we women grow up separated from men. So just by exploring something like this, like gender competence or women brilliance, and introducing that to women and men. So at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, we have to make workshops for men, but no, we have to introduce that for women at the beginning, because they need to know their skills. And part of my research is talking about women being authentic in their work, just to bring their skills, not act as men. Just be yourself and bring your skills, because we need these skills in the workplace. We don't want you to act as a man, we want you to act as a woman. Just bring that and we will be fine. And this is part of my research, and part of, like, this is one of the goals that I'm working on right now, going back, implementing this program, introducing this program to the companies, and having some beautiful workshops as Bonita. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to work with her a lot. She's not going to get rid of me. And I don't want to get rid of you. I'm thrilled. Yeah. We have a lot of work to do together. And I know I'm one of those women. Actually, we have a lot of great women in Saudi Arabia right now. They're trying to get more rights and get more women to work and have the opportunity actually to share that this golden time that we're having in Saudi Arabia. And the government, actually, the good thing is the government are supporting us. They are in our side right now. So saying that, the other thing is about just getting the awareness of gender competence is the ability to you know your own self, your own identity, and bring this out. And have that inner peace of being women with beautiful skills, and work on that and show that to people, show that to your partner, or to your partners, men partners, and talk and be actually to be able to have this powerful conversation. I know your skills as a man, you know my skills as a woman, so let's cooperate together and work that together and have something powerful and start from the base, because right now we are starting and growing up and building that bridge. So hopefully we can do something one day.
Yeah. Well, and I've actually, if you want to, please do see the panel that we did with the men, because Motaz was there too. Yeah. Motaz is from Saudi Arabia, and he's actually licensed to deliver this work. And although he's eager to have Amani back there to work with him, or for me to come.
Yeah, this is one thing actually, and we cannot do this without our partners. Yeah. And I'm so proud to have Motaz or Omar, or even my brother Muhammad. Actually, all of them, they took the class or the workshop. And they want to fight. They want to just support and have and take introduce that knowledge there. So working with them, we can do something.
That's great. Thanks, Amani. And Amani's really touching on one of the things, the exercises that we do, or the basic skills that I suggest, which is slide 13. If you want to bring that up for yourself. The use of adopting and adapting, because often we talk about how women have had to become like men, which is, for me, an example of how we come from deficit. I'm not good enough the way I am, so I have to be like someone else. I have to be like him. But it's different to say, I have great skills that some people can't identify. I need to be able to adapt them to my skills and also adopt their language to be able to communicate to them. That's very different. That's coming from strength rather than coming from deficit. So ultimately what I'm about with my work is to encourage the synergy of men and women working together. It's not about one's wrong or one's better, but how the real value comes out of the two working together. And you'll see that also on the other panel, the results the men have produced, as well as what we've talked about here. So with that, I'd like to move to Shradha and hear from you also from your international perspective and your perspective here and your personal relationship. Now, we're going to have to bring up the other slides now, Deanna. I'm not sure how you work that, but let's see. We'll live and learn. Okay,
so I'm Shradha Cripe, and I was fortunate to take Bonita's class as I was doing my master's here at Santa Clara University. I do have a background in computer science and worked in the technical field my first job out of college, and had found that I was having a difficult time kind of sitting behind my desk and not really interacting with folks, and was really struggling to find an area where there was a perfect niche for me. And as I progressed in my career, I realized that there was this great opportunity to be able to balance that technical and relational skill set, and I started really developing my career on that path, and I really enjoyed being able to tap into those two areas. A couple of takeaways that I had from Bonita's class was the class was about 20% female engineering students, and really listening to that dialogue, you know, when I would hear about some of the technical aspects that they were working on in their careers, it was so fascinating, and you know, these were really some very powerful and educated women. But when we talked about some of the challenges that we had being women in a largely engineering workforce, it was amazing to me how we all struggled with being authentic and really kind of being our true selves and feeling like we had to hide a certain aspect of ourselves to fit in and not be judged. And so I think that was a really eye-opening experience for me on the importance of really adopting and adapting as women, and kind of hopefully setting a new path and encouraging others to continue on that path. I think another great valuable lesson learned for me, and one of the reasons why Bonita asked me to come here and speak, was I had taken her class at a time when I had just returned to continuing my master's program after having my daughter. I had returned to work when she was about 5 months old, and returned to a master's program which I started before she was born, when she was about 8 months old. And so as I was taking Bonita's class, it was really one of the first experiences that I had in being able to kind of balance, you know, these different facets of life. You know, her class was on a Saturday, and it was a full day, and I was a nursing mom, and so my husband was bringing her to campus so that I could feed her during a lunch break. And so it was really this empowering experience to know that I could balance it all and really enjoy it. It wasn't easy in any means, but to know that there were some ways to really enjoy, you know, all the different aspects that I was doing in life. So one of the things that Bonita asked me to kind of talk about here was, during that, she had given everybody a group project to look at how we were using the skills learned in class in the work environment. And she asked one group to focus on a personal story. And so my group chose to do a personal story, and we chose to use my home situation as a case study. And so this presentation that you're going to see was originally done in 2010, and kept the names of everybody involved in that original presentation. But this is kind of my home situation and how I use the lessons learned in class to adapt to a very relational person and an individualistic person who's my husband, and kind of find some balance in you know, all these new changes in our lives. So as we continue forward.
So you can move to slide 2. You just have to say, okay, go to slide 2.
Go to slide 2, sorry.
That's okay.
So this is, as I spoke about, this was kind of what was going on at that moment. There was a lot of change, returning back to work after having a child, trying to finish my master's, and really balance, you know, all these different things that were important: family, friends, some leisure time, and it was kind of all compiling on top of each other. And the goal was eventually to get to, next slide, please, was to get to some element of balance. And so, as we move forward, kind of some of the obstacles.
Go ahead.
Next slide, please. Yeah, that we were facing is, gosh, I can't even see the words on that. Some of the obstacles we were facing, I'm going to try and remember this because I can't see the bullets, but from a relational standpoint, it was I was finding that I was really struggling because I was trying to meet the needs of all the different people in life. You know, people at work, home, friends, family, and so it was really hard to get my own individual goals met because I was putting the needs of everybody else ahead of myself. But my husband, being a very individualistic personality, really didn't understand that, because he thought, you know, at the end of the day, you got to do what you need to do for that day, and everybody else is going to have to understand and move forward. And so we really weren't running at the same pace with that. You know, looking at the relational standpoint, I think I was looking at a lot of people and seeing how they were perhaps perceiving things, or really reacting off of facial expressions, where he's really coming back to me and saying, you know, I was reading too much into what people were saying, and could just move forward with what they told me. You know, very individualistic mindset. I was bringing up a lot of issues, a lot of the frustrations, you know, kind of, again, repeatedly oversharing information, whereas an individualistic person really shares only what's needed. And so, you know, that was a little frustrating for me to not know what was going on in the week or only hearing what was necessary maybe a couple days after I would have liked to have heard it. And at the end of the day, you know, I was always coming to it and saying there's too much to do and not enough time to do it, not enough time to rest. And as an individualist person, he didn't understand that and said, you know, we can only do what we can do and move forward from there. You know, I'll go on to the next slide just to speed up the time. But these were kind of our takeaways. You know, as a relational person, I was saying these conversations are going nowhere. We're going to have another one. An individualist perspective, he was saying these conversations are going nowhere. Why do we keep having them? And so we were really butting heads. And so, you know, really understanding, I think, the different personality types and gender brains, it really helped me kind of form a plan of how it was best to move forward so that we could have a little bit of both in our home life. And so what we, next slide please, what we ended up doing, let's get past this. What we ended up doing was establishing a weekly rhythm. If you could stand that so I could see it. So basically I started setting up 20-minute meetings. You know, 20 minutes, we had a Saturday or Sunday over coffee, you know, in the morning. We'd kind of go through our week and what was going on. And so what this really did was balance the issue for both sides. And from a relational standpoint, I could really wait, you know, Monday through Friday. I'm not bringing up things that weren't important and wait until that time. And so it gave me a little bit of structure. And for him, it allowed issues to not over-empower every single day. It allowed me to it allowed us to kind of delegate tasks so that I could multitask, as relational people like to do. Whereas he could kind of look at the tasks on his plate and do them at his own pace, one at a time. For me, it allowed time to really balance the different facets of life, so I could have time with friends, family, with myself, or to focus on schoolwork, and allow him time to focus on his own individual activities. And so, you know, really kind of the lessons learned from Bonita's classes, it gave me a lot of structure with some elements of flexibility, which is kind of what I needed. And so for him, it gave him a lot of flexibility with some elements of structure, and it really helped us kind of adapt to each other's styles. So it was really a valuable thing, which I mean, now kind of seems just natural, like second skin to move forward with.
It's great, yeah. Especially since you have your second child now, too.
We just had our second child in September, and so it's really been a much easier transition with that. And even from a women's perspective, I think having done my degree while having a child while working, it was kind of an empowering experience to just know that you can really try and enjoy these different facets of life while still being engaged, you know, at home.
Well, and that's, you know, thank you so much. And because this, even though this focus was originally, and the class is originally on the workplace, that many people have breakthroughs in their personal relationships out of understanding these differences. And so I appreciate you bringing this in and sharing this with us, Shradha. You know, the men have had breakthroughs with, I had one fellow from the Middle East who had a breakthrough with his mother. There had been a terrible misunderstanding, and he now understood her and turned that around. And I had a fellow from South Korea who, besides learning all these differences, also decided for the first time he would walk into his wife's kitchen and participate in preparing for the meal, etc. And that inspired a fellow from Nigeria. When he went back to Nigeria for the summer, he did that as well. So it's interesting because we don't want to force any changes in traditional culture. At least I don't want to force any. It's like planting a seed. You know, instead of building something, it's more like planting a seed and letting things grow and letting people choose what they want to do as a result of their experience. And it's really great how you've demonstrated that. Not that yours wasn't a break in tradition, but given all, you know, women and men in the workplace have these family issues balancing their lives. I think it's a great example of being able to do that.
Being able to balance it with somebody at home also helped later on to adapt to those personalities in the workplace, because you get a better understanding what somebody else's needs are, and then you know, can you be a strong team player, a strong leader, and really take that into the workplace? And like I said, that was a difficult thing coming from an engineering background and really understanding where those soft skills could really be of value. And marrying those two has been just a really eye-opening experience.
That's great, really fabulous. I'm just going to have a look. Kelly, do we have any questions that have come up?
No, 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, any other responses to each other that you want to share? I'd like someone. Does anyone here want to talk about the difference it made for you to understand the impact of devil's advocate in your work life? Because I'd even like to ask Deanna to speak about it, because I know in class, when she came to visit, that was something that was really startling to her. But I'll see if she comes. She's not coming on to talk about it, so we'll leave that. I'll just say briefly that often just getting the understanding that the more individualistic way of problem solving and bulletproofing an idea that is something that often really offends and puts women down, shuts them up, I'll even say. The constantly questioning and poking holes in idea, that's what we call devil's advocate. And one of the exercises we do in the workshop always is to be able to practice both devil's advocate and what do women bring? Often, we don't even have a word for it. But there's much more of a strong ability to collaborate and to build on an idea than to actually be poking holes in it. And I found, I was thinking about Shradha, because Shradha had told me that she used to work for the local space agency here. Right. And I had done a workshop for them and had introduced the idea of devil's advocate perhaps being something that discourages people from presenting their ideas. And indeed, one of the senior executives had been concerned that with all the concerns of the company, his greatest worry was that there were no new ideas bubbling up. And we did an exercise based on gender differences about devil's advocate. And after the exercise, the same executive said that he realized that devil's advocate had really been keeping people from standing up and presenting new ideas. And when we asked the question, what are women providing? What are they doing? It was actually a man in one of my workshops that said, well, it seems more like angel's advocate. Maybe we should call it angel's advocate. So that seems to be a very important experience for the women in the workshop, and for the men as well, because they finally get that there's a different way. And practicing this adapting and adopting that I talked about earlier, it's a really good learning lesson. Anything that you want to say about that, any of you, from your experience?
Well, I've noticed it just in interactions, having taken your class, of really seeing that a lot of women are angels advocates, and then when a man is being a traditional male gender brain is being a devil's advocate, to understand where they're coming from and not take it as an attack on ideas, or kind of rolling with it and being able to then respond to strengthen whatever idea you're presenting.
Great. Okay, we've got a question. How can women acknowledge that their perspective is not being taken into account in a professional, collegial way? How can women acknowledge? Well, that's what I call the difference between going to either a dichotomy of, sometimes you just want to hit someone over the head with a frying pan, or someone thinks you're going to hit them over the head with this frying pan, or letting something roll off your back. That's kind of like the polar opposites. And what I encourage is that you take an educative way, where make something into a teachable moment. For instance, with this devil's advocate, well, let me I want to address it more to the question, which is how you acknowledge that the perspective is not being taken into account. I I suggest that what you need to do is, this is the adapting your environment. You don't need to say, my perspective isn't being taken into account. You would say, you know, I've discovered that sometimes there's a misunderstanding of my being so broad in my scope and talking about so many different elements to a problem. I actually am a systems thinker, and you can count on me for connecting the dots outside the boundaries of what other people can think. That's what you can look to me for. See, it's articulating that competency is a way of shifting their mindset about the competency. It's not saying I'm not being listened to. It's saying this is what you can count on me for. If you want to take it to a more teachable moment, you can say, I'm now aware that often a more individualistic perspective interprets the way I do things as being scattered and all over the place. But I want you to see how connecting this, how I pulled this and pulling this, using an example like Sue gave us, or that Linda gave us. Use an example where you can tie in your different competencies. Another great competency is that we talk about customer focus, and often the more individualistic customer focus is, I know what's best for the customer. Whereas the more relational approach is getting into the shoes of the customer and looking from there. But you haven't told your people you work with that that's the way you look. Sometimes I get quality assurance and engineers like this because the quality assurance people, many of whom are women, are getting into the shoes of the customer. So it's by articulating what you're bringing that's different that is educating them in a whole new way, and it's not, it will also give you the confidence to interject when you do have a different way of looking at things and speaking about it that way.
I also have one suggestion. Something that often works, if it is strategic, to actually say one strategic approach would be, and then state your whatever your proposal is or your opinion about that, and base it on that. Because a lot of people, when they hear strategic, would say, "Oh, this is something I have to listen to," because they really want to be strategic. A lot of managers don't necessarily want to go down to the tactical details, but if you can up-level it and start with what's the strategic thinking about what you see and share that.
Right.
That always.
And and you can say, and this came from my connecting the dots, if you can show it that way. You know, I would add, I think you're absolutely right. Remember, it was George Bush that said that we didn't connect the dots around 9/11. And indeed, there was a woman who worked for the FBI in Minnesota who, you know, her division had identified a pilot who, a trainee who only wanted to learn how to fly, not to land. And she had actually communicated to Washington, but she wasn't listened to. So it's, you know, those kinds of pieces of information that dot connectors need to be able to actually set the expectations for. So I hope that helps. Yes, anything else?
Just one more idea, and it's not an either or, this is an and. If you are a relational person and you're not getting the ears of the people that you work with, it can help, in addition to talk to them one by one. Yeah. And start with the one who is the likeliest to listen, and start getting support for your idea from that individual, and then another, until you build consensus for a meeting.
That's good.
So,
yeah,
in addition
absolutely.
to what you two suggested, I think that that's another way relationals can get heard.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we're out of time. I want to point out at the end of the slides, I believe both sets will be added to this session. At the end of the first set of slides, I have contact information. I also have the link for, I have this booklet that we talked about we talked about the platinum rule in the first session with the men. And I have a few published items that are for free on my second website, Gender Confidence. It's in development now, but at least the page with some of these articles, they're available. And certainly the opportunity to do these workshops, either internally or public workshops with other kinds of organizations, we look forward to doing that. And I say that we, because I am now training people to be able to deliver these workshops. And I'm available, and other people, other leaders, including Linda as being one of those people, and Amani. And you can contact me through the information in the last slide. Deanna, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. It's been a great panel, and as Bonita mentioned, the recording and the presentations are available on this link 30 minutes after the session is over. I also want to encourage and invite you all to attend the next session by Linda Bernardi, author, technology provocateur, entrepreneur, CEO, strategist, investor, lecturer, and board member, and one of my favorite people. She's doing a session on how women can and should drive leadership in tech versus following leaders in tech. So I hope that you will join this next session. Promises to be exciting as always, and this has been a great session. Thank you very much for everything. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yes, happy International Women's Day. What a way to celebrate. Spending it with amazing women. I mean, could you ask for anything better? All right, thanks everybody. See you at the next session.
Thank you. Okay, wow.